I okay, so now we're being recorded. So just to start, we're discussing the first class of the Maavar Yabok that we had with Judith Golchevsky, and now we're just discussing that. So Zahava, sorry, back to you.
Yeah, no worries. So I was just saying, to me, that was really good to hear, that it's kind of a consistent thing, that we come in, the prayers we say are the same, no matter whoever's in front of us, we don't know, but that we just go in with the idea that this person was, a good person, did the best they could in their life, and we say, like, consistently across the board the same tefillot. So that's one thing. The other thing about the tefillot, which I found so interesting, is that different Chevra Kadishas say different prayers, different tefillot. So I'm just curious to learn more about that, how, I guess, the minhagim arose. Like, I'm curious how different cities, how different countries ended up with the minhagim they do around the tefillot that are said. So that's just a curiosity for me. But I appreciate what she said in the last class, which was not our class, but the larger, this part 2 session. I believe she said at that point that there's a responsibility for the people of the Chevra to learn what they're saying, like the tefillahs that they're saying. So when they come in to do Tahara, it could become more meaningful for them. So that's something I took away from that class, which I would like to delve into myself, which I'm not sure, like, this is the form to do that in, because we all have different tefillahs we say. So, but that's just something I took away. And then I had a question for everybody based on the last class, because she mentioned, like, when we go in and we do a tahara, like, we should only have pure thoughts. But sometimes, like, with my own personal experience, sometimes we have difficult taharas, that the body isn't, perfect. And, she said in the last class, like, one of the prayers that are, I guess, sometimes said that, you're perfect in the eyes of God, there's no blemishes, whatever. But we know that sometimes we go in and that's not the case. And sometimes, like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like I'm almost in tears because I see the condition. So I had a question as to, like, how do we ensure that we're giving the proper respect when, on the one hand, we want to do everything 100% right, but on the other hand, we're people and we see, like, it could be like an elderly person who bed sores, whatever, whatever the situation is, and it's heartbreaking. And so is that something that we need to ask slicha for, like, because should we kind of, like, not be thinking about that, or, like, what's the right
That's a great question, Zahava.
A
great question. June 20th, segue. June 20th, we have 4 women speaking about one of whom is Tova Hinda. Thank you, Tova Hinda. It's going to be speaking about a mindset, or thinking about difficult, challenging, painful taharas. I sort of don't. I want to address the question, but I also want to cover the material. I think one of the things that you raised before your last question was the idea of how the power that we have to do a tikkun for each body part. That whether tefillot change from place to place, I think the idea is the same, is that somehow we have all this power to cloak the nifteris in kedusha, and to rectify things that were done by certain body parts. It never occurred to me when she spoke about sand, I think that was in this class, when she spoke about putting the sand of Israel, the land or the soil of Israel, that Israel in itself is a rectifying entity. And so we take the sand from Israel and we put it on the eyes and the mouth and the breast and the heart and the breast and the genitals, as those are places that lead us astray. And so we put the sand there. So what we're doing is, like, huge, like much bigger than I realized. I mean, I think we all thought we're doing great work, but this was like, it was almost more than you can appreciate what we do. That's what I got from it, like the power of what we're actually doing. Does anybody else want to comment on that? Tova, I think you're muted or something. I can't hear you. Oh, that's better. Make it a bit louder. A bit louder. Can you make it? Is it just me that can't hear her?
No, I can't hear either.
We can't hear you, Tova.
Because it's as loud as it goes.
That's much better. That's much
Maybe-
better.
Okay, maybe I need to be closer to the.
Okay, now we can hear you.
Now I hear.
You know, I hear, like, first of all, in the interest of full disclosure, we had kind of an emergency situation here this week. So I was not able to watch the entire first class, which I somehow completely forgot about. So I'm here to kind of play catch up a little bit. But anyways, what you're saying is, I think, so incredibly profound that we have that ability. And I know some of the first taharas that I did, like learning from people, I was shocked at how quickly the person that I was learning with, it was like, who is that masked man? You know, like it was like so intensely fast that I felt like if I would have blinked, I would have missed it. And somehow I think that we can run danger, especially if you're doing more than one tahara at a time. Like we have times where our taharas are stacked, and we have.
Come in a bit closer to
Can't hear
Hinda.
you.
Yeah. Okay. We have times where our taharas are stacked, and we have like maybe 2 or 3 in an evening to do, and there's that tendency, I think, in that we really exist in the human body and have this.
Tova, I think maybe you're covering the microphone with your arms, perhaps. Could that be?
No, I'm not. This is
Maybe the rest of us mute ourselves. I'm going to mute everybody and see if that makes it easier. And then you'll have to unmute yourself to talk.
It's a problem before. That's so weird. And my volume is as high as it goes. And
Now we can hear you. I muted everybody, so everybody just has to unmute themselves to get back into the
well,
conversation.
anyways, the point is like that at the beginning, one of the people that I watched at the very beginning did the taharas so quickly. And I think that they kind of get into sometimes the difficult position of it being a job. We have to complete it. We have to finish it. I only have this many minutes. And unfortunately, one of the places that I and my team do taharas in is Chevra Kadisha, where the guys, when they do a tahara like chick chock in like, you know, half an hour or 40 minutes or something, and they're done. And the last tahara I did, which sad to say was a good friend of mine, was the head of the Chevra Kadisha there, the guy who runs the mortuary there. It was like he was practically banging on the door. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. So when we talk about all these amazing things that go on, I feel like we have a challenge to somehow have to balance real life events with what we really want to be doing, which is to take all of these kavanas and things that we're just learning now from and be able to put them into practice. It was very challenging for me. Here, one of my closest friends was on the table, and here was this guy banging on the door, hurry up, hurry up. So I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing that out there in terms of I don't even know what.
Can I jump in over here? I'm just wondering if anybody else on this call is a nurse or not, because you both are. Okay, yeah. So that's exactly, I wanted to address Zahava's question or comment, and also Tova. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because that's always my struggle here, because it's the balancing the politics and the people who are alive now with all of that. And that's why I love the idea of going in and being a vessel. And that the short comment I have, it just felt a relief feeling when we learned, that this is really God's task to take care of all of that. Like, let's let God take care of all that heavy stuff, so we can just be the vessel, be focused in the Kedusha. But I find, Zahava, everything that you said about how difficult it is to be with the person was always my struggle as a bedside nurse. And that's, my whole story as well, but my constant struggle about treating people and everybody else and protecting people. So sort of, I think in a way that we are warriors. And I think as a nurse, I don't know if Elissa and Tova, you think that, because I've been in and out of bedside nursing very infrequently during the time I've been married, but before that I did a lot of nursing. And I've been with birthing, with death, the whole thing, which is why I was compelled to do this. And I think that that's a very, very common struggle, Zahava. Like, and I felt that very much with young people when they were going through the same thing. I felt the same sadness about their different limbs and their different injuries. And when I was there, like everybody treated it like, you know, their arm was like a piece of whatever, their injury was not connected. So I think in a way, the learning, as I continue to learn, I'm just like a little bit getting into that, feeling more comforted that, wow, that's for God to handle that stuff, and we have a certain role and to be a vessel. And I'm just beginning to put that together from the learning, but I appreciate both of what you said, Zahava, because I've struggled with that as a nurse and constantly battling that. And Tova, I am very much would love to learn from all of you how to balance the politics and the people who are alive with the people who are needing our, yeah, that's it.
Maybe the struggle and the fact that we struggle with these things and we notice and we're thinking about it, maybe that's part of the kedusha that we bring to it, that we're not just, you know, that we you know, are thinking of the mess and the women that we're working with. You know, we're seeing them, the humanity, and we're seeing them as people, and you know, we're not just, you know, rushing through, and we're not just looking at our watches, and you know, we're really trying to, you know, struggling to bring in the kedusha. And that's, you know, maybe that struggle is the kedusha.
And to me, understanding the words that we're saying in the background and the layers is really deepening that for me as well.
Somebody once said to me, you know, the tahara that this lady gets will be the only tahara she gets. As opposed to where Chevra Kadisha, we're doing a lot of taharas, probably in Toronto and these bigger cities. You're doing a lot of taharas, so you do a lot. But this lady on the table only gets one.
And that's exactly what I say with working in labor and delivery. It's only one time that a baby's born. Every experience is unique. And yeah, so I'm so glad you said that.
But I think that the kavana, I mean, I'm not saying it that there's for sure a struggle when somebody's knocking on the door and you're trying to like go through this with this elevated sense of what you're doing, and you are doing something very powerful, even if it's rushed. And not to minimize that, like when she went through this whole idea of the chesed shel emes, that was an idea. I'm like, whoever heard of that idea, to say it's not chesed shel emes means like it's a very high level chesed, which it is, but the chesed shel emes it's emes done by us, the Chevra Kadisha, because we are emes, we're Aleph and Mace. Like, I never even thought about it, like crazy.
Amazing.
And then she said this other one about Adam. She says Aleph Dam, that man is Aleph and Dam. I don't quite know. She didn't really like expound upon that. Like, did anybody catch anything more about that Aleph and Dam as connected to MS?
Yeah, I think she was saying that a person is made up of two components, Aleph Hashem, and then Dam, like the blood, right? And so those two things make man. And so when you take one out of it, when you take the soul out of the body, the Aleph, the Hashem, the soul, then you're just left with, right, the mace.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's what she was saying, if memory serves.
But also wasn't all the vitality is in the dam, all of the energy, all of the, she's saying in science, we even understand that now, all the molecular, all the oxygen, all the, you know, the dam is the movement and so, I mean, I have to go back and look at the new notes too to remember, but yeah, fascinating.
And what's crazy is that this really is true, that without the Aleph, without the soul, without that life force, it doesn't take long to start decaying and deteriorating, and that process that is abated by being alive. And it made me think about the push in America anyway to hasten death by, you know, let's just give a little extra morphine, let's just, you know, like push this along a little bit, have a dignified death. But one of the things that I think that I started to think about was when that soul is in the body, when our soul is in the body, it purifies the body, or it gives it prevents it from decaying, keeps it alive. And that's infinitely valuable, whether or not the person can speak or talk or eat or do anything. Just the soul shining its light on its body is a powerful entity to keep in the world as long as possible. I don't know, it made me think like that as well.
That the whole thing with emes, which like you, I had never ever thought of that. I mean, I had heard of, Aleph, Mem, Tes, the beginning, the middle, the end,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, that it's including everything, but never occurred to me. And it reminded me, this is kind of not really part of Chaver Kadisha, but it reminded me of that little vort about marriage, about Ish and Isha, about the Aleph being in there, and without the Aleph, all you have is fire. And so that was the Aleph, and actually the Yud as well. But that concept, it was like so mind-boggling, that idea, and it really opens up such a whole other level of thinking, of just, yeah, it was really amazing. Amazing.
And the other thing she said was that the Aleph, our soul, because it's so connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that the Shekhinah comes along with us. So we bringing, so like that. So Tova, when you say I'm like rushed and somebody's knocking on the door, either way, you as the emes are still bringing the Shekhinah into that room. You're still doing that. Even if you're rushed, you're still doing it. So the Shekhinah's there, because presumably
I think that's partly what I was saying, some of the things that felt so comforting to me, because so many of the times, and I don't know, we're all so hard on ourselves. We want to do even the perfect tahara, and like in the midst of our life. And I think it was so comforting to go, oh, she's with me. I'm not here. And then I think that there's something that I'm also feeling now, and also when we're listening to this sharing, because it's the one time a year that, when we have the dinner in Toronto, that you get to see the other people in the Chaver Kadisha, and there's this sense of camaraderie, that this sense of like, I don't know, whatever anybody can share about that. But it's so profound to me, the yearly dinner, because I don't really know a lot of people and personally here, but also even more so, I think to me right now, it just feels so incredibly profound with everything going on in the world, and then with everything going on in Israel, and the discussions of anti-Semitism and our concerns about, and here we are, even though, we're like so much, I don't know about you, but it's all over my brain. And I actually went to visit the most profound moment of my year, a 96-year-old survivor, the other day on Friday, Baruch Hashem. And I can share a little bit, maybe in this WhatsApp group when we get on, I'll share a little bit of a story, because it gives me so much energy for what we're doing. Like, yes, if we're alive, do it. Like, yes, like learning from this guy who still loves life. And, but I just find that it's almost a remedy for me a little bit during these dark times to go, wow, we're learning, we're bringing back the Aleph Bet and these letters and these old ideas. And here we are in this venue. It's just, there's so many different layers that I find profoundly comforting, because I think the experience sometimes feels lonely, but you're not alone, but the experience, the discussions that we're having right now, the struggles. So it just, to me, it feels very comforting on that level too.
So one of the other things that she said in the class, I don't know if this resonated with the rest of you, that the 600,000 original root souls come back to welcome that spark back. So I don't know quite how to think about that. So like, we're in the room, the mace is there, the soul is hovering over its body. We're bringing the Shekhinah in with us because we're MS. This is crazy stuff. And there's 600,000 root souls welcoming this spark back into the higher Lamos. What did you think about that? Have you ever heard that idea before? The 600,000, she said, the 600,000 root souls are there to welcome. They're getting their own spark back, the single spark that emerged from the root souls and went back into this, and went into this body. Now the entirety of the Jewish people on a spiritual plane are gathered to bring this soul back.
Yeah, that's a real
Wow.
Yeah, it's very wow. I mean, I had heard that it was like family members feel the intimacy of that soul and welcome it back. I hadn't heard that it's like all the Jewish people. Like you, I think I was very taken with all the aspects of the different body parts and what each part. I hadn't heard all of those things before. You know, the connection with Teshuvah and the head and the neck with King David, and I found that quite amazing. But one of the things is also when you lose the Aleph, that we're actually involved with keeping with the body is very vulnerable at that time, and we're very involved with the protection of it. And you know, I mean, sometimes we just think that we're just there to clean and wash and the Tahara to purify, but we're actually far more involved than we think we are, and I think that's quite amazing. And you know, I think we have to work to make ourselves able to do that. It's not the right word, but I mean it's very uplifting. And you know, are we able to do, are we, I mean, well, not are we able to, we do the work, but I mean spiritually, are we equipped to do it, let's say. I think that's quite difficult.
Is everybody hearing a lot of static, or is that just me?
There's static from some people.
I think it's me, it's my microphone, there's something wrong. I mute myself in between, sorry.
Good, thank you, Irene. That's really nice to hear.
I thought it was me because my microphone seems to be off today, so I was going to leave and then come back, but
yeah.
Irene, I think what you said is exactly right, and that's kind of, you articulated very well what I was trying to express.
What we're putting together here is a few different classes, because we've got the overview classes, and then we've got this class. So Irene, I think what you brought up, which is also kind of dovetails with the material that she covered inside the Maavar Yabok, is this body part. Like that was the overview class where she went through the different body parts and spoke about how when we take care of this part, that this part, you know, might have been involved in certain things or did good things, and then we wash it and we purify it and we elevate it and we do a kapara for it, or, you know, that how to, I guess the how to hold on to that kavana when, like Tova Hinda, you're doing a lot, or you're busy, or there's somebody knocking on the door. Like, how do you hold on with anything that we do when you're davening and there's somebody, like people around you, like bothering you and you can't concentrate? How to get to a place
I feel it comforting to know that.
Yeah,
I feel comforting to know at that level that we are the one that the Dam is running through us. And so Kadosh Baruch Hu that's the inspiration, is we are the ones that are bringing the vitality.
Aren't you so aware of it? When I'm so aware, especially in the summer when I get a little dark, my skin gets a little darker, and I'm washing somebody who's so white, and I feel so filled with life. Do other women feel that juxtaposition of who you are in the room and who the mace is? Do you feel that? No.
I definitely do. It's like there's this.
Who's talking? Oh, Tova Hinda, yeah.
Over here. Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, and there is that sense of like such a difference, and yet for me it's like so much of being together. You know, I think I told you, Elissa, that one of the reasons I got into this work is I'm a midwife, I'm a nurse midwife, and it just seemed to me to be a logical extension of.
Tova Hinda, can you remind us where you live again?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Thank you.
So, you know, here for the last, 35 years or whatever, I've been doing births. And
wait, can I ask you if you were a nurse first and then a midwife, or is it?
Yeah, I actually became a nurse in order to get licensed.
Okay, because I was interested. There's different licensing everywhere. Thank you.
Yeah. So, but there was that sense of the neshama with the birth coming in, and then it just seemed like such a logical extension to being the midwife at the birth and the midwife at the death. And so, but I am profoundly aware when I'm doing the Tahara of what you are saying, Elissa, that there is, I have to constantly remind myself, you know, that of what this, we do a lot of Taharas in not Jewish mortuaries, in like what's the word that I want? Secular mortuaries, the ones that are non-denominational. And one of the most profound experiences that I had with regards to how special it is what we do versus how the rest of the world handles a dead body is one of the places we went to. It was a room, like a separate room with the sinks and the water and the supplies and all that stuff. But in order to get to the room on the side where they were storing the other bodies, the people, they had to go through our room, the people who were handling the other bodies. And they knocked on the door. They were very respectful. We made sure everything was covered. And yeah, it's really, yeah, I've done Taharas in garages with hoses. So we do what we can, whenever we're called to do what we have to do. But I was blown away with how the secular, I don't know who they were, I have no idea who the body was, but the way they handled the bodies, they were moving from the door to our room into on the side, the door to the room where the bodies are stored. It was like, I mean, I remember thinking like, it's like they're handling a piece of meat, like it's a side of beef.
Right.
And
This is why I was saying, did you work in the bedside of people's as a nurse with people who actually died? You worked as a midwife in the hospital, because it takes a long time to figure out how to.
Yeah, I did all that med surg stuff when I was in nursing school. I went directly into labor and delivery and then directly into midwifery school. And
Does this material change things I wonder if other people who haven't spoken might like to like chime in. Curious what you're all thinking, whether you find this material changes your kavana or in any way, how does this affect you and which parts of it are most meaningful?
Elissa, it's Alina. One thing that really affected me, the first speaker who spoke today, she talked about how she toggles between like a body that is perfect and seeing a body that's not as perfect. For me, I toggle between the physical and the metaphysical. And specifically this year during COVID, when in the beginning they said, we're not going to be able to do the Taharas, like, you know, it was like a shocking thing, like what, all these people, you know, are passing or affected. What do you mean we're not going to do a Tahara? What do you mean we can, you know, only sit with the bodies but not clean them? And then, you know, they lifted some restrictions and then we were able to be with them, but we were shielded and masked and doubled and triple gloved. And it felt like there were all these barriers, you know, to being physically with the deceased in the way that we used to be able to, and it felt kind of artificial and barriered. And I had a lot of trouble like with the physical world that felt so different. And so when I took the class, I feel like she infused, but you still felt something spiritual there. You know, I continued to feel that, but there were all these barriers. And I remember the first time I did a Tahara during COVID, it was for an elderly woman who actually, she had COVID, but then died several, like maybe a month after that. So we still had to have all these, you know, restrictive coverings, but it was the first time that we did the Tahara. And when it was time to move her to the coffin, you know, we kind of line up shoulder to shoulder and we carry the body. And it was the first time I felt someone from outside my body next to me. Like physically, I felt another human being touching me, which I hadn't felt in months. And I remember that physical sensation. I just started to weep, like, you know, we're carrying this body to the coffin, and it was so shocking. And part of this toggle between the physical, like the physical act of being with the body and cleaning the body and being with other people, and the for me, the tremendous spiritual elevation that I feel, especially during COVID, I wasn't able to be fully present in the way that I had been in the past because of all the additional barriers, and thinking, sometimes you're there and you're thinking, I hope it's safe for me to be here. I hope I don't bring this to my 77-year-old mother-in-law with whom I live. What if this person did have COVID? We had those barriers to being completely I had those barriers, I shouldn't say for anyone else, to being with a deceased in a way that felt kind of less pure, less present. I'm not exactly sure. And so in the way that she taught it, it almost infused the holiness from these last 18 months back into every tahara that I did, that I felt, maybe I did it wrong. Maybe I wasn't there enough. So I felt like that intersection between the physical and the spiritual was really, really powerful for me. And I don't know how she did it, but she brought it back for me for the 18 months or 16 months that I hadn't been able to connect spiritually at that plane, at that level. So that was very, very special.
Thank you. Sarah, do you have anything to say?
So I would say is I'm actually a newbie in the Chevra Kadisha. I actually started as COVID was starting. It was a goal. It was something I had put into place years ago, and for whatever reasons had a really hard time with actualizing it for myself. I had a lot of loss. I had been involved in a tahara, not by choice, at a certain point when I was much younger. So it kind of had put a barrier for me. And then part of my, what can I do during COVID for myself, right before COVID started, for my own self-growth, was actually finally say, okay, I am ready to do this. So in Alina, and what you spoke to, my experience have all been with hazmat suits on, actually. And and in going into that and, and doing it, it was really that barrier physical, but at the same time, for me, at least, it was an extremely powerful experience from the perspective that although there are these barriers, we get to be, that idea of Emet very much spoke to me as well. We get to be those people who, even during these circumstances, are doing that. We have a community, Chevra Kadisha, in Charlotte. So it's comprised of many different kinds of people who are involved. We also usually use non-denominational funeral homes and chapels, because there is no Jewish funeral home here specifically. So, in working with them and them working with us, and then realizing what you get to do, what you get to bring, what you get to think, what you get to give, what you get to share, was an extremely powerful experience. And that's also these the teachings of Rebbetzin Golshevsky have really been very powerful for me as well, and being able to concentrate and kind of try to infuse them, or even on my own say some of those prayers, because depending on the group that I'm with, and I don't necessarily run the group, my abilities are limited. But at the same time, through these teachings, it helped me focus. It helped me be there. It helped me be, beforehand, potentially say to our leader, may I suggest a thought? Yeah. That I thought would be, well received by the group that I'm with at whatever points I was there. And then again, and for me to be able to say some of the tefillot, even if it wasn't done as a group, was something that I could bring. So I really, as Elissa knows, I wear many hats. I'm involved. I've been in conferences the whole morning on different things that I'm involved with. But really being able to do this has been a very powerful experience for me, both physically and spiritually. And I'm going to be curious, and I'll be happy to share what that experience will be without having to be all suited up.
Sally, I'd like to ask if you'd like to say anything. You have to unmute yourself. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah. I'm not going to be back in London for another week, so I haven't done any Taharas since the Shiurim. And I'm going to have a lot more to think about because there is so much more to bring in it. But I also resonate a little bit with Tova Hinda that we have time constraints. I mean, where I work in Bushi, we very often have 2, 3, one after another, and they're linked to a specific time for a Levaya. So we don't have all the time that we would like. And this is something that, you know, it's going to be a balance.
Yeah.
It's going to be something challenging, I think, the time limits.
Yeah.
But definitely, I mean, there's so much to bring in, which I will try and bring in as much as I can in the time that I'm allowed.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of, there's a lot more to come.
Oh.
We're just starting, guys. You know, I think, Alina, when you talk about fear, you know, there's fear of what you can get from the mace, but there's also fear of what you can get from the other Chevra Kadisha people. And that was such a funny, odd place to be at, where, you know, the women that you have this Chevra connection to are like women that you're like a little bit like anxious about, like don't get too close and don't breathe on me. And I don't know, it wasn't a good place to be, I don't think.
It's wonderful that it's opening up. I know for me, because I am probably the oldest person here. Yeah, I am. I have great friends
We're not going to do a poll, don't worry.
who actually delivered my great grandchildren, but I really just took a step back. I have like a group of about 20 women that I can call when we get called to do it, Tahara. And I just took a step back for a lot of this year and let the younger people take over. So by the time I went back, which was a few months ago, we were already loosening up a little bit and just gowning and gloving pretty much the way we always did before. But yeah, it was, that was another isolation for me this year. Yeah.
I think knowing what we're doing, I think having some of this spiritual reality that's happening is, I find, very in rejuvenating or something. It's very empowering and very inspiring. So again, like I do toss up with the time part of it, but then also there's an idea we have in our chevra that you don't want to be doing long taharas, like it's not good for the body to be messed around with too much. So there is a speed aspect to the actual whole thing we're doing, and there's like our kavana coming in. And so we changed in our chevra, we started reading the psukim out loud, which we had never done. And so that I think is a really good thing, is to say them out loud. And
what did you do? You read it to yourselves, each of you?
The Rosh read it. The Rosh read it, and nobody else heard it or said it. Just the Rosh read it.
So in Toronto, we each say it to ourselves. Like everyone who's part of the Tara, like there at each point we stop and we take a couple minutes or however long it takes.
Is it on the wall, or you all have your own?
We have sheets. They have them
As a
laminated.
nurse, I have to say that those laminated sheets drive me crazy, because, and everybody touching everything. So when you're talking about the conflicting goals, I'm like, oh my God, we're contaminating. People don't know.
No.
But that being said, I just wanted to point, there's
so everybody reads their own.
So we have multiple laminated sheets, and then each person, at each time we pause and each person goes to take a sheet and read whichever portion of the tefillah we're supposed to read. And then we continue.
So we just started, the other thing we changed is that we now, when we talk about the head, then we do the head. And then we talk about the arms, we do the arms. And it used to be, we just read it and then we did the washing. Now the reading coincides with the body part that we're washing. Never did that before.
That's exactly what we do. The person who is the leader reads it while the other people on the team are actually doing the thing. So,
but when you're talking about the body part, when she was talking about certain lines that were read, Zahava, do we read those lines about the specific body parts? There were certain things that she talked about that weren't that
So
familiar.
I'm not 100% sure. The way we read it is in paragraphs.
No, I know we do that,
No,
but I'm just
right,
saying-
so I'm not sure, because I have to check was what I'm saying. I would let.
Yeah, I don't think it says about that.
Is
When I was
so-
listening to those lines, I'm like, I don't think we do it here. So did we get that printed out, those actual different lines?
I mean, I can send you what we read.
Yeah.
But it sounds like some Taharas. First of all, I want to be really, really careful that this community of practice isn't about changing people's minhagim. Like, I got to be very careful that we're not out there like changing anything.
I did not
But
recognize those lines.
it does highlight a little bit of what it is we're doing. Like for us, like we have changed, we have started saying them out loud, and we have tried to do it in concert with the body part that we're washing. We have tried to do that because I think it is more kind of makes more sense to do it that way. So it is taking something that we're doing by rote and saying, wait, let's slow down at this point and make this line up.
Sorry, Rhonda, what I was going to say is just quickly, can I just answer Rhonda's question? I wanted to actually see if I can get a copy of what we actually say to each of the Taharas. I don't do that many Taharas all the time. We have a very large.
I can get a copy for that.
So I was thinking I would like to take a look and see, because
Me
I
too.
have a feeling that there are those sentences are in there, but the way it's laid out, we might not be remembering. And just because I'm not doing it all the time, I don't remember them off by heart. So
Right, and that's why I was pretty sure that they didn't sound familiar, and I was very curious about them. So if you can send them, or that would be fantastic. But I'll jump in here because I really felt I wanted to respond to Alina, Sara, and Sally, and because first of all, I mean, well, Sara, you talked about the beginning and so many of the emotions and the deep, and so many of the things that you've expressed, I feel, but all the time in mixtures of ways. But I'm also always feeling the rushed piece, Sally, that, and I think we were talking about the having to get everybody through and the timing. And I think in a way that, to me, when we're looking at different levels, it's almost a metaphor for life. When does anybody ever feel like we do it completely? And so I very much feel that same tension. And this was a struggle for me working with women and deciding giving birth. I mean, that whole thing, because it's the same thing. They're pushing women through in labor and delivery units. And I'm feeling that same tension. And so I think talking into this struggle, I think is, first of all, it's universal. Second of all, I think it's very much reflects all of our lives in general, and all hearing you say it to me, to all of us now. That's why I just want to respond, is so greatly reassuring. And Alina, also, you spoke so beautifully about all the different realms of consciousness. I just had to send that back out.
I think that even in the rush, there's a capacity to be in the moment, and in that moment to be as focused and as channeling.
Right, and that's why the words and the letters
of holiness they
feel so important. Yeah.
And that's why this material is so important. Like just the sand, just learning about why it is that we put land of Israel on people's bodies. And to say that, like, there's something, the Maavar Yabok says that the earth of Israel is a tikkun. It is a tikkun on itself. And
that was so comforting to hear that.
It's buried in Israel. We're bringing Israel to her, and we're putting sand in these places that need the greatest tikkun. Like, wow.
And even here in Toronto, the personal part that I'll share, because this is recording, I won't share some of the other personal stuff, because I might break down in tears. But one of the personal things that just felt so comforting is when my father-in-law, Zichrono Lava, got buried in Toronto in the Chevra Kadisha here. The family, his wife, decided to put the names of his 4 siblings that were murdered and his mother, that it drove him to distraction, that they never had a kever. And we think about those thoughts. And when I didn't think about it till just now. I know that where he's buried, because the piece of earth is in his kever, there's something energetically with the Hebrew words that also gives them, comfort. And he didn't live to see that, but even knowing that he struggled with that, and that somehow those Hebrew letters are in the grave, and I understand it a little bit deeper in Kabbalistic way, has given me it's a link to all those generations. And his family that my children are named after, our kids are named after the siblings that were murdered. And anyways, that was so moving to think about that.
I think Sally or Irene, Irene, Sally or Irene. I think that the Chevra Kadisha in England lets family members come put sand on the mace, no?
I haven't experienced that.
No.
Yeah,
No,
yes,
we
if they
do it.
request, if the family request, they don't, it's not generally, but if a family requests to come, then after we've finished the Tahara, we take the mace into a separate room and they can come, and obviously we don't uncover the dressings or anything, but they can put earth at the hands and on the head. And they do that. And we leave them a few minutes to just be with the mace, and that's what
They put the sand on the head or the hand?
We've already done it. We've already done the whole thing.
But they put more earth, or they just?
Yes, we give them.
Israel.
They can put the earth where the hands are, and the head. Yeah.
One thing that occurred to me when Tova Hinda was speaking is in our community, we have a beautiful tradition, which is when a notice goes out about someone in our community dying, people actually call the people who run the Chevra Kadisha and say, I would love it if I could take part in this particular group. And so, rather than being called, which also sometimes happens if people have a connection to the person who's died, will call and say, it would mean a lot for me to, sit as the showmare or to, participate in the Tahara. And what I noticed is that the Taharas during COVID, young people volunteered really quickly. And I noticed that the people who came into the room we didn't see some of the faces that are always there as our group leaders. There was like a younger face of the people in the room. And the first time when we learned with the Rebbitzin, I was so moved because she said something like, you bring the Shechina, and the Shechina of each living person sees out the soul. And I thought, wow, we had these younger people who, some of them were doing a Tahara for the very first time, or maybe the second time. It was their Shechina that guided these souls. And we also had this, it only now when it was said that some of the older people didn't come, I realized that was also the Chevra's role, is to protect our elders who have guided and looked after the Chevra Kadisha all these years. And it was an opportunity for some younger people to step up. And I hadn't thought about how important that is, and step into our own link in the chain of carrying this old tradition forward. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, that idea of the Shechina is what the Maavar Yabok says about the Aleph, and that along with our Aleph comes the Shechina. So we're bringing the Shechina into the room, assuming that the person died by the Malach HaMavis and not by Kadosh Baruch Hu.
Listen, I have to say goodbye because...
Yeah, no, we're 3:00. We're all saying goodbye. Oh. But you can say goodbye too.
Wait, can I just ask one question?
Sorry, Tova Hinda wanted to say something. Sorry.
Okay, after one question, brief question for you.
Okay, I just wanted, that's all. I was just going to say that I have to leave because I have another commitment. But go ahead, Rhonda, and then we can all say goodbye.
No, I'm just wondering, this is a personal thing. Do they come in your Chevra Kadisha to allow the family members to open the casket? Or do they say, if you want time before, no? Because when I'm only thinking of this when in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, I was asked with my parents, and no, and I don't know if we even do that in Toronto. So no,
no, not.
And I was the only one that said yes.
No viewings, I don't think.
No, yeah. Okay.
But stay tuned. We've got our next. Sorry, Zahava, did you
so
want to say
much? It's great.
I was just going to answer her question. So there's a minhag by Sephardim that they usually ask to see the deceased. They usually kiss the hand of the deceased. So if we know that it's a Sephardi person, then and the family requested, of course, then it's permitted in Toronto. So
That's amazing. I never heard that. That is
All right.
amazing. Kiss the hand. Do they
So,
say which hand, right or left? No.
The next class is June 6th. June 6th, I'm sorry, it's 10 a.m. in the morning, but that's what Yehuda's wanted. So 10 o'clock in the
you.
morning Eastern time, June.
Can you remind
June
us
10th,
about the
June
WhatsApp?
10th, June 10th. And then June 20th, please spread the word for our panel conversation on mindsets, how to think about difficult taharas with Tova, Hinda, and 3 other ladies are going to be speaking about that. And just like give me ideas, like for other panels, I don't want to just have Yehuda Skolchevsky be what we're about. So I feel like somewhere around here, there's ways to connect us as a community of women doing Chevra Kadishas and just keep collecting and finding ways to make it meaningful for us. So that's what I'm looking for. I don't know. We'll keep thinking out loud. And
What's the WhatsApp group called? Because I'm not sure if I.
it's just called Chevra Kadisha Ladies. Send me
Okay.
your phone number if you want to be on it. If you're
I don't
not,
remember if- okay,
just
thank you.
email me your phone number and I will add you.
Elissa, the June 6th session is 10 o'clock Eastern time, is that right?
Sorry, it's not June 6th. It's June 10th. It's the Thursday.
Oh, June 10th, and it's 10 o'clock
AM.
time.
Okay, that's what I had. And then I have the
And then-
review on the 13th. Is that correct?
On the 13th, and then the next one with Yehudis is on the 8th of July with the review on the 11th.
But you're
I
going
do
to
want to thank,
email with
yeah.
all.
Yeah. It's on the flyer. You should have had it 100 times already. I'll send it again.
thank you
one
everybody for
doesn't hurt.
sharing, because everybody said such amazing things.
And I'll do my best to write notes up in between the class and the
Thank you.
review. I'll do my best. It's a lot of work to put the notes out, but because I have to listen to it a few times. But anyway, so
Very appreciated. Thank you.
Yes,
Good,
thank you.
good. No,
The
I
notes
want
are
to write
really
them up.
helpful. Thank you.
Really.
No, amazing. Thank you very, very much. Okay,
Thank you
everybody.
so much for organizing this.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you all
nice
for
to meet
coming. It's so nice to
everybody.
meet you all and like talk to you and know you and
Amazing.
name.
Nice to meet you, Zahava. I'll see you in Toronto, hopefully.
And
Lovely
Rita.
to see
Rita
you.
also is in Toronto. Don't forget your other Torontonian.
I
All
did.
right,
I
the
kissed
lovely
Rita.
ladies from London.
And I
North
tried to
Carolina,
reach out to other Torontonians already.
everybody, Minneapolis.
Thank you.
Bye, ladies.
Thank you.
Have a great day.